Yes, we can hear you
Perfect. And
and see.
in a second, you should be seeing my screen too.
Yes, we see it. Perfect.
Awesome. Let me make this right. I know quite a few. I'm very impressed by the sheer list of speakers and the topics we are touching. Today, I'm going to take a sniper, very ubiquitous. Everybody are talking about AI. Everybody are using AI. And in agile context, what does it mean? And how ethical usage of that would lead? What are the pitfalls and how we can come out of this session with some directions, some inputs, what you can use it immediately in your sprint. Again, I welcome you all. Thank you for being here. Before I say anything else, I want you to ask you something uncomfortable. And I want you to actually think about it for 3 seconds, not just not. Think of the last AI tool your team adopted in delivery. Who decided what it was allowed to do on its own and what it wasn't? If the answer isn't a specific person, a specific conversation, a specific documented decision, then here's what's true. Your team is already making ethical choices about AI. You're just making them by default. And default is the most dangerous setting on any autonomous system. Let me make this concrete in next 60 seconds. Imagine, I want to tell you a story. Imagine a wonderful team deploys a backlog refinement agent that is optimized for speed. Junior developers who, when they're onboarded, have slower cycle times, right? We all know that when they come in new. Sprint after sprint, the tickets quietly sank, invisible to every stand-up retrospective, and every green dashboard metric. You know, as a Scrum Master, what would one see? I would see whether they're engaged. The Scrum Master noticed junior devs seemed less busy. She did the right thing by asking them, "Hey, how is it going?" All they said is yes. Said they were fine, helping with documentation, testing work, pairing on reviews, anything that could help the team. Engaged, contributing, but invisible. Nobody raised a flag because they had work, because nobody felt blocked. They just felt quietly peripheral. We've all seen this, how it plays out. 3 months later, a compliance audit landed. The algorithm that had been systematically deprioritizing an entire group. Nobody did this maliciously. Nobody even knew it was happening. The AI didn't need malicious intent to cause harm. It just needed unchecked autonomy, right? It all looked into the senior devs were bringing in a lot more velocity. So it kept on prioritizing work and tickets for them. The, the AI wasn't biased against junior developers. Yeah, it doesn't know. It was biased towards speed, and junior developers paid the price. It all the model looked at, or the AI looked at, was which tickets assignments would lead a higher velocity. The team didn't make a bad ethical decision. They made no conscious ethical decision. They deployed a tool, watched the velocity numbers go up, trusted the dashboard by default. That's what this session is about. Not fear, not slowing down, the replacing default with deliberate. Don't assume and trust, go and understand. By the end of this session, hopefully, I would hope you all will go out with a framework to make AI decisions consciously. We'll talk about 3 scenarios that show exactly what breaks down when you don't have a conscious assessment of the AI, and 5 moves that you can use on your next sprint without any investment, without any tool. The takeaway of this session is not a new AI tool. We know we all have those tools, but a mindset and a deliberate focus on improving this implementation. I'm gonna take you to, yeah, I know this is where it is. Everyone's building AI. We looked at this study. Everyone's is building AI. As I said, it has become. I was at a university. I was understanding it. Almost in US, 85% of universities students use ChatGPT, but only 10% of universities have a formal policies to govern them, and that's a big problem. If you and y- Same thing applies to your companies too. The gap between using AI and governing is where the default lives. Teams are making consequential decisions about AI autonomy, fairness, and accountability in every single sprint. They're just not recognizing them as decisions unconsciously. Think about this. I know so far we have looked at it, but why don't we look at the numbers, what the numbers speak about this behavior? Before that, the gap between AI and governing it is the most expensive problem in modern software delivery. 85% of development teams believe agentic AI will be table stakes within 3 years. Uh, the recent Cloud work, very recently, I'm a Microsoft Copilot enthusiast. So very recently, we had Microsoft Cloud Cover come into Microsoft Copilot. That's huge. The survey said 3 years, and I'm pretty sure it would be way lesser than that. More than one third expect that shift within 12 months. As I said, 40% of enterprise applications will feature task specific AI agents by end of 2026. Very much possible, up from less than 5% in 2025. And the number that should really stop you cold, 40% of AI projects will be cancelled by 2021, specifically agentic AI projects. Uh, Not because the technology failed, but because of inadequate risk controls. Think about it, guys. We have it is going to be ubiquitous. So what are we going to do about that? So I want to take a pause and say these AI implementation or AI tools in our day-to-day projects occurs at three layers. We broadly can classify into three layers. And what are those? Most teams jump on for summarization, assist. Think about it. AI assists, AI suggests, you decide. GitHub Copilot. It could help. It could summarize your document. It could generate a code. You will look at it. Copilot writes stories, summarize retros. What is the risk here? Transparency. The biggest risk is, are you disclosing AI used to stakeholders? Are we doing that? Second layer, automate. AI does things for you. Things like status report drafting, stakeholder sentiment analysis, test generation. Here, the risk is who owns the ownership? Who is the owner of these artifacts? Accountability. And then we have agentic. AI acts on behalf continuously. You have given the control to agentic agents here. Things like backlog agents, what we looked at in the initial prologue, sentiment scoring, release orchestration. Here, the risk is how are you sure the model or the agent what you deploy is fair? Could there be a bias? Who is going to go oversight? I know you guys have run through a lot of polls here, but think about it for a second. I don't want you to type or add or say your answer, but assess among these three layers, assist, automate, and agentic, where does your teams currently stay? Are you guys using it to summarize? Are you guys making it as part of your workflow? And when you do that, think about the consequences, think about the risk that is involved. Now that we have seen, yes, the layers, the ethical decisions you've already making and you don't know yet, Then what do we hand? All is this all doom and gloom? Do we have any uh, framework to look at it? I would say please remember these three words that is going to be very vital going forward in our rest of our lives for agile implementation in AA space. Transparent, fair, accountable. That sounds something similar to agile folks, right? Inspect and adapt, transparency, our pillars. It's the same. So we all grew up, we all our understanding of agile is do it iteratively, do it precisely, repetitive, and then learn from what you do. Here, add a layer of AI to that. The biggest adoption issue in US, and I would say from the companies I have worked with, is trust. And I want to take this example for a second. Uh, you have built a very good model, and I think most of you will relate. You have built a very good AI model in try POC. It's working excellent. You th say you're building a cancer detecting model. You had access to good data. You went into the clinic physicians. You demoed your product. It did good. But after that, nobody wants to deploy it to the production. Why is that? Trust. Because they are not sure, they are not ready to deploy this system that could decide someone's life and death, right? So why? Again, what we could do, that is the biggest hurdle from POC to final implementation. And what can bridge that gap is trust and transparency. And when people don't know what is driven inside the system, people hesitate to make those decisions. So coming back to this, I keep remember that example throughout this role. Ethical AI, when we say ethical AI, it is not a separate tool or it is not a separate weight that you have to put on your team. It is, again, as I said, it is not another 10 pounds on your AA teams. It is agile. It is inspect and adapt applied to your tools, not just your process. So whatever tools you use, take a educated understanding what it does and where controls can be done. So again, I say transparent. What is transparency in this context is AA outputs, AA results, AA artifacts should be explainable and they should be labeled. Very obvious, right? But we should call it out. Stakeholders know when AA was involved, when AA was not involved. These should show up in sprint review. They should show up in definition of done. And coming to fair, this is where we address the biases. A doesn't amplify, hidden biases. It should not. Prioritization not should not be skewed by experience level or communication style. What I mean by that is like if your model is trained, it's this is an European conference. I'm coming from a US background here. What if the model is trained on native speakers or heavily English speaking data? And when a German speaking or an Indian speaking author or a stakeholder is involved, what if it mislabels them? So these are the things you'll have to take into account when you deploy a solution, how fairly the data is trained on or the model is trained on. So that's another, you have to understand the fairness part of it. Accountable, very much. And as I said, every consequential decision has a named owner. What we mean by that is do not let AI send a status report directly to the end user. Have human in the loop, which most of you will know. Every AI generated artifact should be reviewed, should be controlled, put into perspective, reviewed by the user. I hope you're going to, taking a minute. Okay. Now, so far we looked at, right? Why don't we look at scenarios? Think about this. Automated status report drafting. That sounds wonderful, right? Think about the days every Friday morning you start gathering all the documentation you for this week, you prepare, you have to send like four days different status report to different teams. I'm sure, pretty sure you would appreciate an automated solution to draft those status reports. I would do one. But let us look in what would that mean? What are the consequences if you go through that without proper vetting? AI scans Jira, your Confluence, your Slack, auto generates the weekly executive status report. Everything is good. Delivery manager glances it, looks fine, clicks send. The AI surfaces positive signals and weighs down low engagement Slack threads. Uh, the critical dependency, imagine the critical dependency was buried in that one of those Slack threads. It didn't make it to the report. 2 weeks later, the dependency fails. Project slips. When the executive asks, why didn't we know about this? The AI generated the report. If that is the answer that we're going to give, pretty sure the career will end there. Because accountability doesn't transfer to machines, it stays with us. Then what's an ethical fix for this? You can put in a word in a definition of done saying that every artifact that AI generates will need human review and signature. These are the small nuances, these are the small steps we can take today that will have a larger impact on the overall outcome of the projects. Your definition of done must include the name, who did that. AI, again, this is a common, right? AI drafts, humans review and direct it. Let me look at the second one. Uh, this is also my favorite one. Stakeholder sentiment analysis. AI analyzes retrospective comments, surveys, meeting transcripts to score stakeholder satisfaction. Absolutely. PM uses, as a project manager, this is good. I mean, I don't have to go through all the emails, chats, and a large project. On a large project where I have to deal with, like, say, hundreds of stakeholders, this is very helpful. I like it. So PM uses these scores to decide whose relationship time for this sprint. I mean, you have a limited time, so this should help you. Oh, this is the stakeholder having an issue. I would want to go and connect with them, understand what is happening. But the problem is the model was trained on English speaking communication norms. Someone back in India, someone back in senior German stakeholder, formal, precise, it scores them as disengaged, even when they're deeply satisfied. On the other hand, effusive frustrated partners scores engaged, but he is about to churn. So you missed a golden opportunity to talk to someone to change that adversarial impact. So what is an ethical fix for this? Look at the score, but let that not derive the outcomes. Scores inform, but you are the one who will decide. So every low score triggers a human conversation. That's the thing we can put. And you can put a quarterly bias audit on all these decisions the AI has generated. And these are frameworks. Again, is there a standard framework that is out there, a tool? No, but it is a conscious human intervention on all these AI tools. Going to, and I love this. This was the starting part, the velocity, right? So there is a team that deployed a backlog refinement agent or backlog prioritization agent. The agent re-ranks backlog weekly by business value scoring and the velocity data. Think about this. The model has been trained by the last 18 months. It has looked at all the previous sprint outcomes. All it is looking for is which of these tickets and which of the people, if I assign, will get the most velocity to this. This is great. Product owners love it because they are make working, or this agent is helping them to work on the most impactful ones. Excellent. Scrum Master notices that junior devs seems less busy. As I said, junior devs, when they come in, their velocity, their cycle time is less because they're learning, obviously. But and they when Scrum Master rightly notice this. They ask like, yeah, we are fine. We are helping with testing and documentation. They fill the time with invisible supporting work. Stand up sounds normal, no blockers raised, right? The Scrum Master was doing everything right. She just didn't know she needed to inspect the algorithm, not just the team. 18 months in, every accessibility feature consistently ranks bottom third because it is unglamorous work, right? No revenue tag, no short points. Then a disability rights complaint lands. Obviously, since the team deprioritized all the accessibility features, since because it was driven by the agent, they didn't work on those accessibility issues. And when they shipped the product, it was on the bottom of their scenarios. So, and very close to your home, EU AA Act non-discrimination clause applies here. This is not just oversight or a slippage. This is governance, and you cannot ship products without these norms, regulatory exposure, right? So basically, what could you do at this scenarios? What is an ideal ethical fix here? There isn't one. So you would basically, as part of your demo and DoD, you would generate a never list. Write down the things. Make sure the team agrees which are the things that go into the never list. Never allow accessibility features to be refined or prioritized by agent because that needs human touch, right? Having said that, this is the framework. You looked at the transparent, the three words, right? Keep in mind transparent, fair, and accountable. Now, all this is good, but what could each of you take home tomorrow? What could you start with your sprints tomorrow? Practical approaches. Here is the 5 moves I call. You don't need a new tool. You don't need any leadership approval. It's just that 5 deliberate mindset approaches. Again, in your definition of done card, have a criteria. Was AI used? If AI was used, make sure that human signs it off. This closes the accountability gap for you, right? Shadow mode first. Before you put in a new model or agent, uh, deploy it, but still review it. Human reviews it for like 3, 4 sprints going forward. And once you're satisfied, then you switch to agentic or automatic things like stakeholder analysis or agents. And then every time, what decision does again, as I said, never list. Make sure you run through a never list. What decisions uh, can the agent do or the AI do? What decisions are left with human? Make it obvious as part of your team agreement. Do a quarterly bias check. Very important. Just don't assume that AI is doing right. It's our responsibility to do an audit on AI performance it monthly and quarterly on the language, sentiments, and you have an opportunity to check on this in your retrospectives. As I said, do a retrospective agile way. Did our AI tools behave as expected? Did any AI output reach a stakeholder without human review? These are these are the Scrum Masters, product owners. You could make this commitment. You can make an impact today. You don't need any new course to learn and make an impact in your teams, right? That's Having said that, this is good, but is it optional? No, not really. In this slide, I'm going to walk you through why what we're talking today is not just wishful thinking, but regulatory requirement also. You're in EU now. The EU AA Act is your legislation, and its timeline changes the urgency of everything I have said today. The timeline wise, February 2025, prohibited AA practices enforceable act was done. Mandatory AA literacy for all staff about handling AA systems. It's already a law. So if your team hasn't received formal AI training, you're already in compliance gap. But again, AI is, I keep saying this in our calls, AI is like computers in 1999 or 2000. It is not a good thing to know. It is part of our lives going to be further. By August 2025, transparency reports, training documentation. If you're building on foundation models, you have obligations in force right now. So we'll have to follow certain policies, exposure data, compliance, and exposure that we have to report. And the best part is August 2026 and the next set, full enforcement of high risk AI. So EU Act categorizes AI into high risk into 4 categories. So it is very good to go out and start familiarizing ourselves. Teams embedding ethics now. So what's the opportunity for us now? Now that we are aware, informed, you could be bringing this into your teams. Teams embedding ethics now, skip the expensive retrofit later. The most sophisticated organizations have stopped treating governance as a brake pedal on innovation. They've recognized it as what it earns an organizational permission to keep deploying AI in higher stake scenarios. If you have a minute, take a screenshot on this. All we looked at it so far is in this one single screenshot. Assist, automate, agentic. That tells you where your teams are today and what is ethical risk at each of this level and what you could do. And transparent, fair, and accountable. Let that be the driving principle for every task and work you do on your agile teams. Wrapping up very close, let me leave you with this. At the start of this session, I asked you who decided what your last AI tool was allowed to do on its own. And I said, if the answer wasn't a specific person, a specific decision, your team was making ethical choices by default. I hope you're leaving this session with the ability to change that. Not someday, not next sprint, some other year, right next sprint. The teams getting this right are not waiting for the directive from CEO. They're making a choice in their next sprint planning, in their next retrospective, to be kind to their stakeholders, users, and regulators and stuff. Yep, your team is already making ethical AI decisions. You came into this session making them by default. You're leaving now, hopefully, knowing how to make them on purpose. Thank you, guys. And I'll take questions.
Thank you, Madhusan. Actually, there is a question in the chat. It is about how to create transparency in those environments.
Excellent. I would appreciate that. So it has nothing to do, if you want to answer that, I want to take a step back. It is hardly anything to do with AI. It is your agile principles. So communication in your team, one, tools are there to do that. But again, as I said, put controls. If you go back and look at it in the definition of done, transparency, one thing I've learned is if you are all aware of it, CPM AI is one of PMI's flagship AI framework. What it helps us at every stage, not just at the end, every stage when you gather the data, document them, what kind of data, and when you train the data biases. So throughout the journey, you document what and how the data is trained. Again, and most of you know, every AI project is 80 to 85% data science projects. So your data drives your AI. So that's your first step, documenting at every stage, regular review of those scenarios, and not just waiting for end to generate the inferences. Do POCs, communicate those results with the stakeholders. The more they know what has gone into the AI, that is the first step of building transparency and trust.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madhusan, for the presentation, for your insights that